Listen to me. If there was a wise man who would ever think of this, they would say in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. For I am the man himself.
Hello all, what is going on? And before I introduce myself, I want to show you something. Something a little bit different. This, I keep telling you guys that new graphics are coming along. This is kind of something that I like to do. Get a little more of like a motion and more of like a video rather than like a photo effect for the background. I would like to do is get something just a little bit different. So again, I haven't really started working on a new graphics yet, but for this stream that I have been wanting to do for a couple weeks now, that I'm finally going to do now, is one where I kind of like test it out, see how it goes, and we roll from there. But guys, I still got to work on it for like Raw and SmackDown, but this is like something I'm looking at. Like I said, I have Adobe After Effects and Photoshop now, so I definitely wanted to add some little, little bit more spice to my graphics. So that's where we're gonna be there. But guys, what is going on and how y'all doing tonight? This is the Club of the Man 1993, and like I said, we're live. And also, if you didn't watch my SmackDown review, I sound a little off. I promise you guys, I'm not sick. Although my wife is getting over a fever. And I do feel a tad bit scratchy. But that's been a little off and on the past couple days. I've been taking NyQuil, drinking fluids, so I'm fine. But I've been wanting to do this special live stream for a little bit now. I was going to do it Thursday night, but then I had a bad night Thursday evening. It's some bad winds in the area. My grill blew over off the porch. Luckily, it's okay, but had to take the propane tank off because I think with it being on the one side, that's why I kept getting blown off when the high winds happened. But and then of course, again, I was just beat, and again, I was trying to take care of my wife who was sick. So I'm doing it tonight. I, of course, am going to be civil about it. And again, just watch what I say. As I had to say to do so when we talked about Vince McMahon a few weeks ago as well. But we're going to talk about Patrick Clark, formerly known as the Velveteen Dream. Because Dream was, last month, breaking some silence. He was in the news again. Well, more so the fact that in a positive manner for the first time in a couple years. On January 2nd, he posted an apology video on Twitter that went about 4 minutes, which we'll discuss there. And then he also, later that month, had an interview with Chris Van Vliet, which, if you haven't checked out any of Chris Van Vliet's podcasts, definitely check them out. Where he kind of more so like broke his silence. The cuffs were off, and he basically, for the first time since he got released and since the allegations happened 3 years ago, finally was able to tell his side of the story. So, I have watched the video. I watched the apology video. I've listened to the interview probably about 2 or 3 times. I even watched it once because I wanted to see Clark's body language. And I say Patrick Clark because what I got from this video is the fact that Patrick Clark, the human himself, is trying to establish who he is outside of wrestling, outside of the Velveteen Dream. So basically what I'm going to say at the end, even if he would come back to wrestling someday, based off this interview, it sounds like that we will probably never see Velveteen Dream again, but we could see Patrick Clark again in some capacity in wrestling. Maybe. We'll talk about it. But first, before we get there, I do have a couple special guests in the live chat here. Tyler's saying, please don't let Bianca win the Chamber. I don't think she is. I still think Jade Cargill is going to get in that second chance battle royale. I think she'll be in the Chamber. And I think we're going to get Bianca versus Jade at WrestleMania. He likes new back rows. Well, again, like I said, this is something I'm looking to do for the for my other videos as well. And this is kind of like a test right here. We got Robbie saying, Mikey, the new back row looks great. Color is fitting for the person and subject you are discussing. For sure. SmackDown wrestlers should not get Raw title shot for WrestleMania. Robbie said, Mike, assuming we get the Jimmy match at WrestleMania 40, I think it should be tribal combat with possibly their father Rikishi getting involved to endorse the winner, which honestly would be very fitting. They just got to get going with that feud. I really thought we were going to start getting that direction at the Royal Rumble, but we didn't. We're probably going to get it on Raw this coming week for that Intercontinental title match. He also says, I think I told you this before, but I have 2K23 for the PC/Steam. And every time I hear Bray Wyatt's theme I play, can't help but sing, Shout for me, Bosom. Oh, yes. Because that's what I thought it sounded like when I first heard it. But at the same time, it's Die for Me, my brother. Rest in peace, of course, Bray. Also, I think I saw somewhere that I think it was 1 year ago today, I think it was, Bray Wyatt had his last live TV appearance. Dang. Oh, man. Mikey time, as he also said. Don't let Roman win again at Mania 40. He better not. Tyler thinks Jade should go down to NXT. I'm not opposed to that either. And he doesn't really care for Jade. That's fine. But yeah, guys, thank you for your thoughts in the live chat. Again, makes sure to keep things going. We are going to roll in and get started because I did tell my wife to DoorDash us some food. Well, we agreed. That sounded like I was being very bossy. We agreed to DoorDash some food. So I said it's going to take about 45 minutes. Why don't I do my live stream during that time? Why wait for dinner to get here? Papa John's, by the way, is what we're having for dinner tonight. Some pizza and some wings. Robbie, also for a throwback, the wings are just one flavor. They are boned in, not boneless, but they are some crispy, tangy, well, no honey barbecue, but crispy, tangy, sweet, delicious garlic parm flavor. Just for old time's sake, I felt like mentioning that. We also got a few more things. Your thoughts on the men's chamber qualifying matches being interpromotional and if it hurts the brand split. Like I said, with basically my thing was okay. I didn't like it when they had them involved in the I didn't like it when they had them involved in the tournament last spring to crown a new world champion. Because they just did the draft. They just did the draft, and they specifically said this is a Raw branded title. So why would you have SmackDown superstars involved there? For the Chamber, since the Rumble winner got to pick either the Raw or SmackDown champion, I was okay with the Chamber having a mixture of both brands. I'm okay with that. The problem, though, I had is why did all the men's matches have to be Raw versus SmackDown talent? Why couldn't it be like the women where it's like there's like an even amount from Raw and even amount from SmackDown? Because, again, the men's chamber match now has 5 SmackDown people and one Raw person, which is Drew McIntyre, who's probably going to win. When Jay was in AEW, I thought she was so green and not ready, he thought. Which apparently Triple H thought so as well, which is why he didn't rush her out there. I'm going to play this voice message for Robbie on Instagram. And then after that, we're going to get rolling and we're going to get started and talking about the elephant in the room. That is Patrick Clark. But let me, of course, get Robbie's voice message. 12 seconds.
Crispy, tiny, honey mustard barbecue flavor. Dude, you're talking chicken, aren't you?
Yes, I am talking chicken. I ordered 6-piece wings and a small pizza for myself with pepperoni, mushroom, and sausage on it. My wife gets pepperoni with stuffed crust. I'm not a fan of stuffed crust. So, but yeah, thank you guys. Make sure to keep your thoughts coming. But let's get into this. Let's talk about Patrick Clark. I haven't talked about him, I don't think, since he got released. And according to his side of the story, we'll be talking about here, apparently he was not released due to the allegations. He apparently was released due to budget cuts, as everybody else was during that time. If that is the case, it's true or not, I don't know. Let's wait and see. But again, I watched both the apology video and I listened to his interview with Chris Van Vliet, which had, which again, I listened to it a couple times, took some notes, and I also watched it once on YouTube. So first, let's talk about the apology video. To summarize, Clark posted this video back on January 2nd, 2024. And he felt he needed to apologize. He apologized to the organization of WWE, both the organization and fans. He apologized to Triple H, Shawn Michaels, to Hootie Miles, who is Ashante the Adonis, who apparently is his best friend. And he also wanted to apologize to his family. He was apologizing for his attitude, whether things were written about him or not, and despite his immaturity, still being given the opportunities he was given. His family and friends that have felt they needed to speak on his behalf, he never needed them to do that for him. He, basically is what he said. He apologized. So, the gist of what I'm getting out of, this and the video. Now, let's first mention the one thing. In the apology video, Clark never mentioned anything about the allegations. He never mentioned apologizing to Josh Fuller and I think Jacob Schmidt, which, of course, when I was listening to the names again, made me think of John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt and whatnot. His name is my name too. No, it's not really, but, you get the gist. The gist mainly I got from all this content is what Clark feels like he does have to apologize for is the fact that even though, we get to it later on where he comes out and says all the allegations against him were indeed false, is what he's saying from his side of the story. He still felt that he had an attitude problem for what it comes across as. He was, as like a baseball fan for me, I've seen guys like Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, a few other guys who have come up, who got called up at like 19 or 20 years old and were given the biggest spotlight ever. And you can tell that they just weren't mature enough. Well, Patrick Clark kind of was in that same boat. At like 19, 20 years old, on Tough Enough, he was given a WWE contract, and he was already one of the best characters on TV at 21, 22 years old. Back when he found the Velveteen Dream character, and he had that first feud with Aleister Black, the Say My Name feud. That's all he wanted to do, is have him say his name. And just that simple storytelling concept, that match he had with Black at TakeOver War Games 1, is what made him a star. So the gist of it was, as a young man, obviously, he had a chip on his shoulder. He was a wrestling fan. But he was a typical, basically kind of say he kind of thought he was the shit. But also, what he thinks got him into the bind with the things that he got accused of is the fact that he was trying to help people. And to this day, he is still helping people. What exactly, how his philosophy and theory behind that was, though, we will get to that when we get to the next part, the Chris Van Vliet interview. So, as far as the apology video, I'm like, okay, he's apologizing, but he's apologizing to what he was a part of, to the people who gave him the opportunities and he let them down. And again, because obviously he thought he had an attitude problem. But he never addressed the allegations in that video. He did address them, though, with this interview he had with Chris Van Vliet, which we're going to get into that next. So again, like I said, I listened to the video like 2 or 3 times. And I also watched it as well, because I wanted to see Clark's body language. Because Chris Van Vliet, who I think is a very good interviewer, this interview had like a very different tone to it. It wasn't the usual like intro, the hype up, like the energy. Like literally, like as soon as the interview started, they went right into the nitty gritty, and as soon as it ended, it ended. So this kind of had like a darker tone to it, but I think Chris asked the questions, and Patrick was open completely to answering anything. He, of course, had, documents with him. He came prepared for this interview. And I also got to say, I do think Chris did a good job also playing devil's advocate. I think he asked the questions the fans want to know. Honestly, what we got here, I think would have been better off if we would have had something like this before they brought him back on TV for his last run in 2020, in my opinion. Because the way they did it, the way they kind of just brought him back, and then Triple H was asked, and then he basically, yeah, we found nothing. It did kind of look like WWE was sweeping it under the rug a little bit. But we're going to be civil here. We're going to, of course, keep things appropriate. And we're going to talk about what, in fact, was discussed. Based off the notes, of course, I have from Clark's responses to Chris's questions. So this interview again took place on January 23rd, 2024. That's when it was released. And the first thing he basically asked him was, why did it take 3 years for this? And why did you feel you needed to apologize? Especially to Triple H and Shawn Michaels. And Clark just said, well, it just takes everyone the time to process. And to him, his process was 3 years. And he also believes now he is in a better place in all aspects, as he is starting to figure out who Patrick Clark is without wrestling. He wanted to apologize because others were affected by his attitude and the way he handled himself as a professional. Because of him, things needed to be changed professionally and personally. Triple H and Shawn Michaels, he apologized as he referred to them as bosses, coaches, and mentors. And they spent so much time putting him together on screen. And of course, when, there was dirt on his name, they still tried to fit him in. But like I said, that part I kind of hold on WWE. I think the statement Triple H said, which Clark shared later, I think that should have been mentioned sooner, rather than you bring him back on TV as a surprise return, and then it's like, oh, what are we doing here? Oh, he's innocent, basically. That, again, kind of left a bad taste. Because even after that, there was still stuff coming out about Clark and whatnot. And I just don't think WWE handled his case correctly, if I'm being honest. The second thing he kind of asked was, What has your life been the past 3 years to understand where are you at now? Clark said, again, as said before, the goal has been for him to discover who Patrick Clark is outside of wrestling. There was a Patrick Clark from Tough Enough, and there was also the Velveteen Dream. He was a young, cocky, number one fan in Tough Enough. He went from consumer to provider of the wrestling product. Starting on TV off such a young age was a lot to be thrown at him. He just needed to grow up and not be cocky and not have a swelled head, as I said before. He lost focus on why he decided to be a professional wrestler because he loved it. He's now taken the time to be a decent and more mature human being, as it seems to be. And also, of course, as he mentioned a lot, got a heck of a lot closer to God also. Which, of course, a man who has a close bond with God, in a lot of respect, as someone who's a firm believer in God as well. So, kind of a little bit of a repeat there, those first couple of questions that he was asked. He also asked about the response from the apology video, which was positive. And he wants to know, what did it mean? And Clark said it meant a lot. Especially getting the mask of the Velveteen Dream get ripped away from him was a reality check. It gets to allow people to see who he is. He can re-earn the trust people gave to him blindly because he abused the trust he was given. And again, because of, more so his attitude. So, we're about to get into, a little more... Now, I'm not going to go into the firm details as to, what exactly he was accused of. We all know what Clark was accused of. I'm going to try to get some of the details to kind of, endorse... I don't should say endorse, but to summarize his side of the story here. So, he was asked, why were the allegations not addressed in the video? Which is my question as well. And he said the allegations made against him were indeed false. And he believed this began when some people who he was trying to help him get into wrestling, and again, as he said before, the way he presented himself. So, the pandemic happens. And obviously, he's still trying to make a difference. And also, he mentioned sometime later that in, I think it was 2K20, his character, the Velveteen Dream, was part of a storyline in 2K20 where he was taking people under his wing in NXT and trying to help them. So during the pandemic, of course, when, obviously he was still working and people were sitting at home, as the Velveteen Dream, he opened up his DMs, which this may have been a mistake. Because he mentions how, he would ask people, how old are you? What are you doing right now? Where are you going to school? Kind of like a way, as Dream described it, to see if this is somebody he should be helping or not. Or if he thinks this is somebody who should be getting involved in wrestling. Which I believe, based off of that, is kind of what happened with Josh Fuller. Because Josh Fuller, apparently, I think Dream was trying to talk him out of wrestling because of him suffering concussions and whatnot. So obviously, I guess the Dream should approach it as he should not have been putting people on the spot to determine, hey, should I be helping these people or not? But again, he said Van Vliet, though, played devil as advocate. And of course, first thing he says was people were wondering, though, why were you talking to a 16-year-old? And Clark said, of course, at the time, I think for one of them, he was 19. And he wanted to, again, play a role as a mentor. People have been mentors to him. He wanted to do the same and be a guy who could say, hey, I helped that guy get to where he was today. He did say, though, he was only inclined to helping men's wrestlers. He did not feel he was inclined to women because he felt he can't relate to a women's wrestler. Also, what he said too is that when he was talking to these people, he spoke more like Velveteen Dream and not Patrick Clark. He was playing the character as he felt so. So he basically explained why the allegations were not addressing it, because they were false. He was also never arrested or charged for these allegations. WWE did investigate, and Triple H was correct when they said they didn't find anything, and Clark was only off TV those few months because he was originally accused, but he was only off because of his car accident, not because of him being accused. He also later stated again that when he was released in May of 2021, which was 6 months after his last TV appearance, when he had a match with Adam Cole, because when he came back, and they basically didn't really address anything, and then they basically said, "Yo, Hunter, what's up with this?" And he basically said, "Oh, we found nothing." Like I said before, it kind of felt like it was being just swept under the rug. So again, they turned him heel because obviously the fans were not going to be cheering for a guy. Had they would have, I think, done something like this, where released a statement before bringing him back, I think things would have been a little bit better. But Clark claims that he was released due to budget cuts, not because of the accusations, which I find a little bit hard to believe since he was off TV for so long. But either way, his character did kind of run to the ground dead because, again, people just turned against him. He also mentioned how WWE, also a reason why WWE, of course, this is a good point he made here. WWE would not have had him back on TV because they also have an audience of younger kids. And they wouldn't want to hurt that image in a case like the crimes he was accused of. I already said that. Again, it was just his attitude mainly that obviously, led to people probably pissing him off, like a Josh Fuller who was refusing to help him. Or, I think Fuller even, something about he even asked him one time to meet him to go bowling because he was in town. And he kind of tried to defuse situations okay, but first I'd rather know this, this, and this about you more first rather than doing it. And, he tried to cut ties with some people who he did want to help. But even Clark said the way he cut ties with people should have been handled better than just him just abruptly ghosting somebody, as he also felt as well. Also, he mentions that Fuller apparently claims that he had a recording on Discord of conversations that he was accused of having that was inappropriate to minors. But then again, there was no evidence of this conversation. WWE and the police all viewed these matters. And even also in his statement, there were two sentences that that Clark pointed out that was mentioned. But he basically mentioned that Clark never made any advances toward him, but he also claims he was told by others that he would. So it's more so a thing where it's nothing ever happened, but people told him, hey, watch out for Clark. The only thing that he really wasn't able to explain was the photos he was accused of sending. He was I don't know what's up with those, basically. So that I thought was a tad bit off. But the rest of it, he had the paperwork, he read the statements and everything. He even had copies he gave to Chris Van Vliet as handouts and whatnot. He had the reasonings and the evidence to prove to show his side of the story that, again, I was never arrested or charged with anything for any of these crimes. He was, though, arrested 3 times for other things. As he said, he stayed in Orlando 2.5 years too long as he should have. He should have moved back home with his family, but he was afraid of, the impact that was on him, how that would affect their image. And like he said, he never wanted his family or friends to feel like they had to speak up for him. The first time he was arrested, though, was April 21st, 2022, which was around 2 years to when the first accusation came out. He was arrested because he got pulled over for not having his lights on. And when he went to pull out his ID, a little baggie of drugs fell out of his wallet from someone that he got at a Hocus Pocus festival. For that, he pleaded no contendere and was given probation for a year. Or he also had the option to get his record cleaned by doing 25 hours of community service and taking drug rehab classes. And he was doing that, and he was, I think, just a couple days away from, getting completed and finished and cleared. But then he was arrested a second time. On August 20th, 2022, he was arrested at a gym after he got into a fight with a coworker as he was being asked to leave an area that he tried to enter where cleaning was involved. And of course, TMZ did release footage of that, which of course most of it was Clark advising the police officer he was never read his Miranda rights. So that happened there. But because he was arrested there, and I guess apparently he was arrested for battery and assault and whatnot, I think it was, but he was never charged. I don't think they ever charged him with anything, but because he violated his probation, at the end of that week, he was then arrested a third time, and he spent 18 days in a correction facility, which is where he felt he was collected, and that's where he felt he hit his rock bottom. And he also felt he grew closer to God those 18 days he was in there. He did also, on the interview, look into the camera and publicly apologize to the gym employee he fought with and to the Orlando police. And he also admitted that, yes, he did, in fact, while he was fighting with that employee, he did bite him in the ear, as he also was claimed of. Now, apparently, the thing where he was doing drugs in front of the police apparently was all false, also, he said. He was also asked about the accusation he got from EC3, where he accused him of leaving his phone to record people in the bathroom at a party he had. So, Clark tells the story. Well, of course, this is where, I think Chris Van Vliet did kind of interrupt him and say something people are EC3 saying that, because what Patrick Clark said is, he had his vices he had to deal with, and EC3 does too. And he still has to admit that he has a problem. But of course, Chris Van Vliet did say, well, EC3 claims he doesn't have any vices. Where Clark was kind of okay. He kind of you could tell that kind of struck a nerve with him a little bit. But his side of the story for that was, he was with EC3, a lady, and 2 former wrestlers he worked with. Which I remember whenever he first posted that video saying that those things that EC3 accused of him of were not true. I remember he said it was a current Monday Night Raw superstar and a former NXT talent. I don't know why, but I have this suspicion that the former talent at the time was Lars Sullivan. Who else? I'm thinking either Buddy Murphy or Ricochet. I don't know who it was, but of course, he kept their names out of their mouth. He didn't mention any names, as they all have jobs, and he didn't want anyone else getting in trouble. He mentioned that in the video, and he didn't want to do it again here. But anyways, they went back. They were downtown, and after finding out bars were closed, they went back to EC3's apartment. And he brings out a black and white picture of Tom Selleck that had drugs on it. And basically said, guys, let's party. Clark says, again, he knows EC3 that has his vice and whatnot. He has to put the same work in that he has to put in to better himself. Clark claims that he did leave his phone flat in the bathroom, but it was not recording anything. He just accidentally left it there. And it only got mentioned because EC3 was being interviewed on a podcast, and they brought up, and it was around the time when Clark was arrested for the second time, and EC3 was just elaborated on the story then. That incident, though, even if it was true, he said, the incident was never reported to WWE. He was, of course, the last two things he was kind of asked about was, would he ever want to wrestle again? Is it his hope to wrestle again? He had a long pause and he says he doesn't know. His story about Patrick Clark is not dead. But he wants to keep moving forward and continuing to find out who Patrick Clark is without wrestling. Right now, he's in his happy place. He loves the environment he is in. I guess he's living with his cousin now on a farm, working there, and he has a dog he calls Bubby. He says never say never to wrestling again. But even if he would wrestle again, he said the Velveteen Dream, he wouldn't want to be the Velveteen Dream again. Because, of course, that was a part of his life that was bad. He wants to be, if he does get the chance to wrestle again, if he does think that's where he's meant to be, then it would be completely fresh. He would want to be something different, not something from his past. He doesn't want to be, a cocky young kid who had a lot put on him at a very young age. No. He wants to be more professional, be able to handle things better. He doesn't want to leave bad tastes in people's mouths. He doesn't also want to think he's a what if, but more of a what can be. If someone did call him after this interview and ask him to come in for a booking, he would do it. But right now, he is in his happy place, and he is in no rush to get out of it. And then the last question was the usual question that Chris likes to end his interviews with, which is gratitude, because it's very important to him. And he likes that. He begins and ends his day mentioning 3 things out loud he's grateful for, which honestly, again, is a very nice way to start your day and end your day. Sometimes I think I should do that, to start my day on a positive spin and end my day on a positive spin as well. But the 3 things that Clark, I keep saying Clark because he doesn't, to him, Velveteen Dream is in the past. Right now, it's all about Patrick Clark. But the 3 things that Patrick is grateful for is God, unconditional love, and opportunity. And then he did thank Chris, of course, for the opportunity, but again, the interview just abruptly ended. So, after hearing all this, where do I stand with the Velveteen Dream? What do I think should happen with him? Do I think he has a future in wrestling? Do I think he will ever come back? Do I think he's innocent or guilty? Do I think he's telling the truth? Here's my biggest thing. As far as the innocent, the phrase is innocent until proven guilty. One thing he's not lying about is the fact that, again, yes, these investigations were looked into. He was never charged, and he was never arrested for any of these allegations. He was honest for what he was arrested for, and that, he doesn't think he's 100% innocent, as, again, is his attitude that kind of got him in the spot he was in. So, I firmly believe he is innocent. At this point, I think Patrick Clark is innocent. because if he wasn't innocent, I think something would have happened by now. So that's me just going off the phrase, innocent until proven guilty. And right now, Clark has not been proven guilty. So I think he's innocent, and I think he is telling the truth. Like I said, the only thing that he wasn't able to address was the photos. And that was where I kind of scratched my head a little bit, but again, I can't accuse the guy of anything if, again, there's no true evidence that he in fact did do what he was accused of. So, hearing this, I genuinely think Patrick is sorry. For how he was. It does seem like he has taken the time to try to improve himself. Now, do I ever see him wrestling again? I think someday, but I think it's still going to be a while. Again, I still think, doing this, apologizing, getting his name out there, telling his side of the story, I think is just the beginning. I think, he has to, which, of course, he was very private about, where he is now, which I wonder if maybe it's DC, because isn't he originally from DC, I think it was? But, I think basically he's laid out his mission statement. And now he's continuing to do the work. So, I think it's going to be a little bit. Because again, what stands out, again, this was Patrick Clark. This was not the Velveteen Dream. Although the character Velveteen Dream was awesome, it would have been a WrestleMania headlining character. Probably a Hall of Fame character as well. I still think Patrick is sticking with his guns. And if he ever would wrestle again, he would need to find a new identity for it. So, with that, I think it's going to be a while until we see him back in the ring again. If he, in fact, ever does come back. Will it be WWE? I don't know. Could be AEW. Could be the Independents. Could be New Japan. Who knows? I think, though, once he finds that next chapter identity, though, I think he will be back. Like I said, at this point, again, unless if some other things come out that need to be investigated, at this point, I'd say he's off the hook. Like I said, I know, there was a bunch of different things, evidence and what, but again, to me, it sounds like, from his point of view, again, I'm not saying I'm taking sides with him, but from his point of view, and from all I've heard so far, it seems like these accusations came out of revenge because he was very selective with who he wanted to help and how he handled addressing people who he felt he was not able to help, which he wants to improve on as well. And he said still to this day, he still helps people. So, I think someday we will see him in the ring again. I don't know. I still think he has the passion to be a wrestling fan. He even said himself, he would take a booking if someone gave him the call. But now that he's getting his name out there and telling his side of the story, breaking his silence, again, I think he's just starting the first steps in the next chapter. I think he has to continue to show the world he's finding an identity. Once that happens, I think he will be back. And yeah, guys, that's my thoughts on Patrick Clark and his recent breaking his silence, explaining his side of the story from the accusations from Jacob Schmidt, Josh Fuller, the EC3 stuff as well that he was accused of, several other things too. Again, Chris Van Vliet did an excellent job. Again, definitely check out the interview, but watch any of Van Vliet's interviews as well. He does a very good job. And again, I admire, again, the positiveness he tries to spread as well, especially, of course, with the gratitude stuff as well. So, that's my thoughts on that. Guys, any thoughts in the live chat? Really nothing since. Tyler saying now Vince is getting the Benoit no mention thing. He is, and Brock almost maybe getting it also. But that does it, guys, I guess. Food should be here shortly. What are your guys' thoughts again on Patrick Clark? And where do you stand? Where do you think? Do you think Patrick is innocent? Do you think he's guilty? Do you think he will ever come back to wrestle? I may post some polls, of course, to see what you guys think. And also, what do you guys think of these graphics? Like I said, hopefully they hung in well during the stream. I think they did because no one didn't really complain. Like I said, this is something I'm looking to do with some other things in the future as well with my graphics. Which hopefully around WrestleMania, maybe I will be able to have new ones done. Because I haven't worked on the new ones yet. But maybe I'll have the new ones done. And hopefully maybe like after WrestleMania, it's like a new chapter for Demand. And make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. I have gained some momentum back recently. And as of earlier today, I was 24 subscribers away from 2,000. Let's still try to see if we can get it before WrestleMania. We have a little under 50 days till WrestleMania, and we need 24 more subscribers. Let's see, guys, if we can make that happen. Make sure to leave us down in the comments section below. I will be live again this coming week for my Elimination Chamber preview and my Chamber review. The only thing is, though, is I found out tonight I'm not going to be able to watch the show until Sunday. Because my plans I had for Saturday with my friends who I was going to watch them with, unfortunately got postponed. I can't watch them at another time during the day Saturday. So we're going to watch it together Sunday instead. So no spoilers on the Chamber. I will, in fact, be watching it Sunday. Probably won't review it until the beginning of the week. So hopefully I'll be mentioning that, of course, when I get my weekly agenda posted. And we'll roll from there. So guys, make sure you guys leave thoughts down in the comments section below about anything discussed in this video. Slap a like on the video. Subscribe for more content to come to my channel. Follow me on Twitter as well at the Club of the Man 93. Must be perfect time because my dog is barking like crazy, so I'm pretty sure the stuff's probably getting dropped off. And follow me on TikTok and Instagram at the Club of the Man 1993. And until then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you guys all later, and do not forget, in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. And for I am the man himself. And that is not just an opinion, my friends. That is a fact of life. Yeah!